Throughout my long journey in Minecraft, there's always been a few projects that surrounded me. From the very beginning with Forge, Bucket, and mods like Buildcraft and IC2, to now having PaperMC, Fabric, and big mods like Create, and of course, the mod that brought me so much joy as a kid, the mod that has been with me and I occasionally return to from time to time. I'm of course talking about Pixelmon, but what I'm actually going to be talking about is what I think his successor, Cobblemon. Don't get me wrong, while Pixelmon will always have a special place in my heart, with me spending hours creating servers with me and my friends, having tournaments every week, Cobblemon has slowly but steadily been taking over that spot as the new and improved version of a Pokemon mod. But that begs the question, how does one do that? How does one not only outclass, but outperform a staple of modded Minecraft for almost a decade? Well, I was lucky enough to interview the man himself.
I'm Hiroko. I'm the mod director and dev lead of Cobblemon. I've been doing Pokemon modding in Minecraft for... I don't have to answer that. I have Fifth Amendment privileges. Too long I've been doing this.
That's Hiroko, an Australian programmer who worked on the Pixelmon mod and now on Cobblemon. Besides him, I was also privileged to interview part of his entire team of talented people as well. So whether you are an animator, a programmer, or just a Pokemon lover, allow me to take you on a journey and tell you about the underdog story that is Cobblemon. Some of you might be wondering, Lunar, what is a Cobblemon? Well, Cobblemon describes itself as an open source Pokemon mod that's on Fabric and Forge, with over 500 Pokemon, with beautiful animations when they sleep and faint, a responsive battle system that doesn't take 6 hours to make one move, and as of 1.4, it has all the starters, berries, and even more shoulder mounts. Yes, you can have a Pikachu on your shoulder. With 1.5 being around the corner, bringing in fossils and possibly gyms, it's an exciting time for the mod. Basically, when you download Cobblemon, your entire world gets filled to the brim with these lovable creatures. But there's something different about them. If you're used to Pixelmon, you might think to yourself, hang on, why are these Pokemon so chunky? In my opinion, this is the first thing that screams at you that this is a completely different beast. Rather than taking the 3D models, putting them into the game, resulting in somewhat of an uncanny valley effect, Cobblemon tries to vanillify the Pokemon. This is done very deliberate, as it has a great number of advantages over the more traditional method Pixelmon uses. As Rexiel, the art lead, explains.
How do you take like a Pokemon that's well known, for example Oshawott, how do you transform it to the style that Cobblemon is known for? Because they are traditionally either fully rendered 3D or sprite. Put them in a pixel art / Minecraft style. How does that process work?
We had to figure out how to take all these very complex designs and make them fit Minecraft, and that's tricky because Minecraft's creatures are very simple. And so at first the Cobblemon models were kind of more in that simple style. They have gotten more complex over time, but we think that they have still maintained the blocky style. We have certain rules about it. The Cobblemon modeling team motto is, we don't make cubes look round, we make cubes look good. And that means that whenever something is like very round or weird shape, we try to make it as blocky as we can, while still looking accurate to the creature.
See, while Pixelmon uses their own renderer and programs like Maya to create these Pokemon, which is a professional level modeling software requiring to have at least some idea of what you're doing, Cobblemon uses the built-in Minecraft renderer that not only interacts better with vanilla Minecraft's built-in systems, but also allows users to use Blockbench, significantly lowering the barrier of entry to make your own Pokemon, which we will get back to later, as it is quite a feat. But let's first talk about the other elephant in the room, the absolutely gorgeous animations. These Cobblemon creatures just feel alive, from the way they faint to the way they come out of the Pokeball. And of course the very cute way they sit on your shoulder. So after starring at Pumpkaboo for a bit too long, I asked Torchmarrow, the lead animator, how he comes up with these animations.
Yeah, a lot of our references are primarily from like anime, stadium games, or like a lot of them are just off the dome. We kind of just let creativity run rampant as long as it kind of fits the personality and style of them on, while not getting too outside of our style.
Do you have a process for that, or like a good example?
Not particularly an example. some of the Faint's ideas are like the most like creative ones that we have, right? Like Phantump gets sucked into its head before it settles. You have Ninjask zipping around before falling, and there's not really any reference of that. So we just kind of like, that's just off the dome, and it winds up feeling really true to the Pokemon while also looking fantastic. The biggest draw for me was the animations. Whenever I looked into the mod, and genuinely just the amount of detail and quality that our animators pump into these guys are just insane to me. Like, it's sometimes I look at like old Pokemon games and I'm like, we do this better sometimes. Like on some occasions we just do it better, and I love that.
And this feeling is totally justified. I've played Pokemon since I was 10 years old, and I was the type of kid to actually shout Ghost Aravia whenever I would battle with it. So imagine my face when 14 years later, this mod makes this bird actually faint like I always imagined, or just sleep in a very cute way, like the oversized chicken it is. The world of Pokemon really comes alive in this little block game we call Minecraft. It's insane, and that's the exact feeling Hero wanted to create.
How would you describe Cobblemon as a project?
It's a Pokemon mod that's trying to capture the feeling of playing Pokemon, much more so than just like a checkbox of features, trying to capture something more of a feeling, make it integrate with Minecraft so that people don't see the Pokemon as data and instead see them as companions. Try to integrate it deeply enough that you get the open world RPG of Pokemon that people want.
Like the more lifelike aspect of it.
Yeah. Really sell them as living things, because I know that the biggest sadness for me with Pokemon games was when I learned how IVs and EVs worked, because it turned the Pokemon into data, and they were no longer companions. So I really want to work back the other way, and a lot of the team feels the same way, where we want it to feel more real.
And in that, they succeeded, with already great things implemented. For instance, the use of data packs as essentially a mod loader inside their own mod. Oh yeah, I did mention you can make your own Pokemon, right? Because you can. On their Discord, there's a whole section dedicated to these fake mon, ranging from different colored Magikarp to, oh no, not him. This is all possible thanks to the use of data packs. And I asked Hero why he decided to implement this feature.
When I was with Pixelmon, the thing that was asked for all the time was custom Pokemon. And now Pixelmon has custom Pokemon, and it's become much more of a normalized thing. But when we were designing it from the start, this is just one of those things that was designed coherently from the start, is that we knew that was going to be necessary, and doing data-driven modding works better in general. So that was like from the start. As soon as we figured out what data packs were, we were like, yep, that's what we'll do. And it was easy, honestly. There wasn't much in the way of difficulties. More of like, how do data packs work? I'd come from 1.12. I had no idea what they were. Yeah, it's like moving things over to be data generated. And I think that is the right way to design a mod like this, or a game, really.
Truth be told, I've heard a few things that are common, and I'm very, very excited. Let's just keep it at that.
Who leaked it? Who leaked it? Give me names.
They're going on the hit list.
With all these amazing features already baked in, and more on the way, this mod feels like great fun. However, there's still a little bit of a gap we need to talk about. Being that Cobblemon is a new mod built for 2 mod loaders, and with 1.5 being around the corner, implementing the fossil Pokemon in the vanilla of Minecraft style, with possibly new buildings, it's super excited to see where this mod is going. However, these features are not in yet, but that didn't stop me from asking Slippy, the build lead, how he tackles the problem of transitioning 3D models into Minecraft builds.
The traditional Pokemon games were either 2D, sprited, or fully 3D rendered, right? In the upcoming, because you mentioned there's not a lot of buildings in Cobblemon right now, but in the upcoming one, there are going to be more buildings. How do you translate something that is traditionally sprited and 3D into Minecraft's aesthetic, specifically?
Yeah, so there were a lot of debates about how the build style should look. We decided early on that we're not going to be copying anything in the games. We can make like little small references here and there, but we're not taking inspiration directly from the games. That's just because the games have a wide variety of style anyway. I mean, you jump generation to generation, the buildings are updated, they change style. I mean, Scarlet and Violet's builds are very different from Sword and Shield's buildings. The style is all over the place, so we just don't take from that. What we did decide, however, was we wanted to integrate with vanilla Minecraft early on. So we decided we're gonna try our best to kind of follow what vanilla Minecraft's building style is already. However, I argued that was kind of lame. Vanilla's building style has developed over time as well and is still continuing to develop and get better. I argued for what I consider to be an enhanced vanilla style.
After reading through this guide, which I can't show you, I'll get back to that in a little bit, I'm pretty confident in what the build team is cooking. But like I said, this mod is very new and is very far from finished. But they overcame the biggest challenge of them all, being unique. In a space as crowded as Minecraft modding, the hardest thing to do is to stand out, and not only just being another mod. And in that, I think they exceeded in spades. However, that doesn't mean it was always smooth sailing. And we often forget that our favorite mods are being made by people. People with their own flaws and quirks, and so I asked the team behind one of my favorite mods what their biggest issues were and how they overcame it.
Are there any things you look back upon and was like, man, I wish I've known this before I started working? Or are there things you would tell your younger self, like, hey, if you're gonna start this, be wary of this?
I think in terms of the art, not so much, because art is like an iterative process, so we kind of needed to make missteps along the way in order to learn things from them, right? So I don't really like regret any of the things that we've done because we've learned from all of these processes, and that's how we've gotten to where we are now. And on the art side of things, I think things have gone pretty much how we expect them to, especially even in the game design side of things. Like, we've made some mistakes and we're probably going to correct them in the next coming update. We're learning as we go and we're fixing mistakes as we go, right? That's kind of our process. I think honestly, in terms of like missteps though, it's more on the social side of things and that team dynamics. Like, I've made mistakes with how I've handled the team early on that I wish I knew better before then. I didn't have the foresight that, then to kind of see some things I know now. Yeah, I had never been in charge of anything like this before now. The result of this is that really early on in development, and this is before the mod release, I was very argumentative, combative. I kind of, I duked it out with a lot of members of the team a lot. The reason for that really was when I first got put in charge, my mentality was just all wrong. My mentality was like, how can I get what I want into the mod? And that was the wrong way to think about things, right? Later into development, when we actually started recruiting more members, I kind of learned what I'm actually supposed to be doing. I figured out that it wasn't about trying to get what I want. It was about trying to help everyone else learn how to get what they want.
I have a tendency of getting obsessed with my work, and when I do that, if I don't pace myself, I will wind up having days where I eat only one meal before going to sleep, or not eating at all. So as long as you are obsessive over something like that, if it's a good thing or, whatever, it is really important to pace yourself, or else you will either burn out or actually hurt yourself.
Yeah, so the build team scope in the very beginning was very small. Originally, it was just going to be a couple of structures here and there, and then it turned into we want to do full-on towns that randomly generate, and then it turned into we want those towns to like be very different every single time. To we also want legendary dungeons in the mod, and maybe some. This is still up for debate, so don't take anything for what I say verbatim. But there's also talks with the design team of how you want to do like different dimensions, possibly different biomes, and so all of that just came over time, and the build team scope just increased tremendously. Not to mention that when we really wanted to do a lot of cool marketing things that also required the build team to make something well, because if we're going to market something, we wanted to make it look like it's in our style. So That's been the biggest growing pain, I think, in terms of like, from the beginning to the end. I guess another growing pain is like, I wish I started learning how to implement structures earlier, because I just came on as a builder, and I loved building, and now I'm seeing myself turn into the build team implementer as well. So I've been learning a lot of that stuff, and eventually I'm gonna have to get into learning how to make biomes as well, and potentially dimensions. So that's been the biggest hurdle.
That is my curse. I often look back on systems I wrote like a year in the past and go, this is crap. But there are some that stick out. The AI for the Pokemon, I really wish I'd done properly from the start. I kind of rushed out the simple behaviors for them following around, but that whole thing is getting rebuilt. We're going to be moving across to the more modern way of doing Minecraft Entity AI, but I don't like the way it works right now. I don't like how much depends on the old goal-based system. I'd like to have redone that from the start. Another is the way that the client-side models and animations are wired together in the code, not the way that data packs and stuff, or resource packs rather, interact with them is fine. It's perfectly fine. But some of the code it could be better. I've had to upgrade it multiple times, and it's better if it was just done properly from the start. Those stand out to me. Fortunately, things that for the most part aren't very visible, but the AI is so dumb. They get under ice and they can't figure out how to swim back up to water, swim back up to air. They get stuck running in place. It's always something with this AI.
And I think you can see why this mod is so successful. This team is extremely passionate and so grounded in reality that there was basically no other option than success. With Varaxiel leading the many talented artists, Sleepy steering the building team in the right direction, Torch and his team making this game feel alive, and of course Hiroku for making sure his creation is the best it can be. So it's only fitting that I let Hiroku take the final word with a little advice to all of you out there.
Being a seasoned developer, I'll call it, what are your biggest tips for smaller developers just starting out?
I bang on about this all the time because I want more developers in the space. I think the most important skill or attitude to have is you have to be stubborn, because there's just this long climb upwards where you're always struggling with things that don't make sense. So why is this not working? The process developers go through. They start with, this isn't working, why? And then they cross over to, this is working, why? Like, you're always in this state of, what? It doesn't make sense. It's not working. How am I supposed to do this? If you are passionate enough or willful enough to stick through it with the stubbornness, then you can do a lot. Even if you start off like me, where I was a terrible developer for like 5 years, I was virtually useless in Pixelmon. I caused so many problems. You have to be stubborn enough to hold on, and that's big. I think another thing that is beneficial is to find a lot of open source examples of code, study how other people have done it, clone their project down so that you can start it up with the code and then play around with it, see what happens. Tweaking is a really good way to learn, because you don't have to know all of the setup. You can just poke in and, how does this work? How does that work? That's very educational. And don't make big goals. Everyone wants to do this, especially if you're young. You want to think of this crazy thing. I'm a programmer now. I'm gonna create this big thing. Don't do that. Don't do that, because then when you fail, because it's a big goal, you're just going to be devastated. Have little goals. Have curiosities. Have things that gradually build up your skills across a lot of different areas. Experimentation helps a lot. And lastly is do something you're passionate about seeing the result of. Because here's a fun fact. Programming is really boring. When I'm coding, I have this screen of text in front of me, and I hit my keyboard and I add more text. It is boring, terribly boring. If you aren't passionate about the thing you're going to see, if you're putting together a mod or a side mod or an add-on or whatever that add something you don't think is very cool, why on earth would you do it? You're not going to do it for the fun of typing. You have to be doing it because you care about it. And especially when you're dealing with the difficulty of programming, you need to be doing something that keeps your spirits lifted. So do something you think is kind of neat. Make modifications to... I don't recommend delving into the Cobblemon code as a beginner. It's bloody complicated. But delving into one of the other side projects that has open source, I can provide a bunch of links to them. Cloning those, and then cloning is in git clone. Don't try to recreate them.
Do plagiarism.
Yeah, don't do that. But download them. Try to set them up. We've got a programming chat for helping people out. If you're willing to put in effort, then we're pretty happy to help.
And once again, I think those are wise words to end on. So with that being said, I was Lunar. You were awesome. And I better see Cranials in the next update or I'm going to riot. Thank you to the many pebbles scrolling down the video right now. Thank you to my boulders and mountain supporters that are on the screen in big letters as well. If you would like the full access to all the interviews I do, feel free to pledge on Patreon right now. And if you have some spare time, 30 minutes after this video goes live, I will be live on YouTube doing a charity stream. So if you have a few minutes to spare, I'll see you there and I'll be sure to discuss some questions you might have. So with that being said, thanks again, lads.